the other erotic melodrama from Denmark is called The White Slave Trade, which
What a
is
title that is.
a little unfortunate. It's I mean, it's trafficking, no pun intended, Jesus Christ, in a overused trope that is of a kind of racial threat of white women being enslaved,
Hmm.
uh,
I'm
especially in contrast to women of color.
Yeah.
Um,
I am curious how
but
much of that is like an American thing. Like in Europe, was there that same kind of connotation? I guess otherwise they would just call it the slave trade.
yeah, probably. Um, uh, this is based on. So this movie that we watched is a almost direct knockoff of another movie called The White Slave Handle, which is now lost. But this kind of mimicked it almost shot for shot, and uh, Denmark didn't have copyright laws that applied to film at this time. And so they were like, it's the same movie, but with better
Yeah,
actors.
which is such a great like marketing ploy of just like it's not illegal to just remake this shot for shot. So we're gonna say that we did that and just say that we did it better.
And I think it's pretty good.
It is pretty
Considering.
good.
Uh, so maybe it's better than the White Slave Handle.
Um,
Uh, both of these are based on a book, by the way, by Elizabeth Schoyen that came out in 1905, called "The White Slave Girl: The 20th Century Shame." Um, and that is a book just about basically what this is, which is a, a white woman in Denmark getting duped into joining a brothel, basically.
yeah, in London.
Yes, she accepts a job that seems a little too good to be true, but it involves like traveling. And when she gets there, she gets locked in a room and is you know that whole situation. This movie was banned in the U.S. because it portrayed a brothel, and they didn't like that.
Yeah, this one it was. I mean, this was the sort of thing where I'm like, oh yeah, this was banned in 1910 because it was 1910, and it was just like anything remotely having to do with sexuality was like, no, we can't have that.
Yeah.
Um, which was kind of what I expected from The Abyss. This had nothing in it that I would really think warrants. I mean, I don't think The Abyss warrants censorship. Um, but this has nothing nearly as risque as The Abyss. I don't think. It's much more of a like thriller, like action film almost.
Yeah, because it involves a very involved rescue and her trying to sort of espionage her way
Yeah.
out of this
The
situation.
main sort of plot of the film is like once she's there, she sends a letter. She gets a letter sent back to her family in Denmark, and her, I guess, not husband, I don't think, but I guess,
Fiancé.
perhaps, he goes to London and hires a private detective, and they are like, plot an escape, and there's like a chase, and she gets re-kidnapped, and there's like a big rescue on a boat, and there's fight scenes, and
Yeah, I mean some heavy theming that
yeah.
I don't think it deals with the seriousness of the Abyss. But
No,
it's still I think it's
it's a much broader, more straightforward story of just sort of like it is taking this very kind of heavy subject matter and then kind of spinning this almost like I hesitate to call it like an adventure story, but that is almost how it feels at times of just like
yeah.
we gotta rescue the lady from up, and it's like she has to like tie her things clothes together and like go out the window, and there's a whole car and horse and buggy chase, with them trying to escape.
Yeah, this was another. So this one was also about 35 minutes long, and this is a different critic who was remarking upon it, I think like 10 or 20 years later, who said, who called it the first artistic film. As a guide, the printed program is unnecessary. The rapidly shifting but carefully linked episodes speak for themselves. And I think that speaks to what I was talking about earlier of these two movies feeling not like a big old collection of scenes, but as actual things that flow from scene to scene, and they don't feel like these stale kind of
Yeah.
shot this happens, shot this happens. It just works like a real movie does.
Yeah. I'm definitely very excited to see what what other Danish films come out in the next few years after this.
Yeah.
Because just based on these two, it seems like Denmark really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
August
Well,
Blom is the director of this one.
mm-hmm.
So that's a name to, I guess, keep in mind going forward.
Yeah. And who knows if this was in the original movie, by the way, but this has a split screen. Were you about to mention it?
I was, yeah. You got there before me.
I was afraid you were about to move on, so I was like, I gotta mention the split
I was about
screen.
to talk about the split screen.
What do you want to say about the split screen?
It's very cool because it's a three-way split screen, which
Yeah.
even now is kind of unusual to see. And it's used in a really cool, it's not just done for like flashiness. It has a very specific storytelling use.
Yeah, it's telling concurrent stories that are happening. That's what concurrent means at the
But I
same
mean,
time.
it's showing on the far left is one person on the phone, the sort of like one of the heads of the brothel. In the middle is the woman who gets kidnapped and locked in the brothel.
Yeah.
With I think her mother. And on the right is the madam of the brothel, who is talking on the phone to the other guy on the left side of the screen. But what they're talking about is the woman in the middle screen.
Oh.
So it's like,
Nice.
yeah, I thought that
If
was
you're
a very nice, like, I don't know, it's good. It's very efficient use of screen space, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I was pretty impressed by that. I don't know if it was in the original movie that it was knocking off, but if it wasn't, then maybe their claims were not so overblown.
Yeah. I did also see, I forgot where I read it, but apparently the poster on IMDb and on Letterboxd is from the original film, not this one. So
Well, I'll put that poster in the video version if you're watching on YouTube.